Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to the next chapter of my good old Coppernob project. Today I'm going to be converting this design, which has been 3D printed into this collection of random Loco parts, into the first fully assembled prototype of good old Coppernob. This is actually the second video in this little series, so if you're interested in the actual design process behind this locomotive, then I'll pop the first video up there for you. However, if you're more the physical type, or perhaps I should clarify, the type who prefers seeing physical objects rather than CAD images on a screen, nice save, then this video might be the one for you anyway. But today's job is going to be to assemble the first prototype. And as you can see, there is quite a daunting pile of bits there to tackle. But obviously, I'm going to have to do that one bit at a time. And the first bit, the bit I'm dreading, is putting the Loco driving wheels onto the axles. Now, this is something I've struggled with because they always end up with a wobble. And of course, that produces a poor running locomotive. So in the last video, I hinted that I designed a device basically to help in this process. And here is this device. So this is two parts which sort of connect together with these rails, and you put the two wheels and the axle into the middle, and this device will quarter them, so that ensures that the coupling rods are offset at the right number of degrees from each other. And by clamping this into a vise and pushing the two together, the two wheels should remain perpendicular to the axle perfectly, hopefully. So that's the first job. It's a bit awkward to get the wheels into this, but once they're in, I think it does work. So let me demonstrate that for you. Right, so I've put the wheels on their tyres, and I've got the axle in the middle there, and I'm now going to position this in the centre of the vise as best I can and start tightening down on it, and hopefully this should all stay nice and parallel, and hopefully it will work. Okay, start squeezing them together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my calipers and just keep checking whereabouts they are on the back to back. I'm aiming for 14.3 mil. Now I could keep the calipers there and keep tightening, but that encourages them to sort of lose that perpendicularity. So I'm just going to keep tightening them a little bit at a time and keep testing. So I think we're still well clear of it. I think we might be there. Yep, 14.32, you know what? That's close enough for me. So hopefully they will be nice and square. Oh, just look at this, folks. Look at that, no oscillation. Oh, and I haven't even had to worry, haven't even had to think about the quartering either. You have no idea what a relief that is. So I've got the other two wheels here, and somewhere there's another axle. I think it's here. Yep, so this is the non-driven set. Let's do the same with those. I won't show you that, and then we'll move on. Right, I really am looking forward to getting started. This is truly the first time any of this will have gone together. So there's no instruction manual for this. This has never ever been done before, so I've got to figure out the best order to do this, because the next time I try to put all of this lot together, I will have spent hours delicately painting it, and there will not be any room at all for mistakes. So this is when I've got to make the mistakes, and I've got to learn from them, and I've got to become an expert in assembling this kit. So the first job is going to be to assemble the parts that are going to be glued together using araldite, which is the strongest of all glues. In fact, it's a two-part epoxy resin. And I'm going to use the araldite to connect the splashers to the main running plate, and they go onto this ledge like this. So it's a relatively small contact area for the size of the piece, so they definitely have to be araldited. The other part is going to be the tender buffer beam, which goes onto the tender chassis. I'm going to use some araldite on that just to make sure that's a good fit. And the other thing that I've thought of is these nameplates, number plates for Old Coppernob, and they go onto the side of the boiler like that. And I just don't want those coming off while I'm fitting the other details, so I'm going to use the Araldite on those. So it's got to be a relatively quick job, because once I've mixed the resin together, move all this, it's going to set quite quickly. So I'm going to get all of the parts I need and put them together, and let's create a locomotive, shall we? Right, so I need a suitably small amount right here on the chassis. And it's this one I need right now. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to leave that to dry and move on to the next pieces. Let's do the buffer beam then. So for that, I'm going to put a bit of the resin on this clip. There is a clip, well, it's not a clip, it's just like a little locating piece on the back of the tender, so it should be easy to get it in the right location. And the buffers can go onto this later. This ought to set rock hard, so I'm not worried about that really. And then the little number plates, I keep saying name plates, and this just requires a very, very small amount of the glue. Little dob, should be fine. Okay, great. So that's the resin bit done with. I'm hoping, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that everything else can be done with super glue. So let's start. I'm thinking I'll do the tender handrails first, because then I can sort of leave the tender alone and let the glue set. Not that it will take very long. So let me just find some of the handrails. I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue into the holes, and then in the handrail goes. Alright, there we go. Can't probably see too much of this, but I will show you a better shot of the whole thing at the end. So there are these valves, tiny little things, which connect onto the boiler of the Loco, and they are going to have some real copper wire coming out of them. And there's also these little gauges for the cab area, which also are going to have some copper wire. So I'm gonna do that, I think. So you may not be able to see this too great, but what I'm gonna do is cut a small section of 0.4mm copper wire. I'm going to put that near the piece I want to attach it to. And then I'm going to use the soldering iron to just melt the plastic around the copper, and hopefully they will then stick together. Okay, so that's that. I've got now 3 components with copper wire fitted to them, so that's done. And I guess I can start looking at the other copper wire components, and that is of course the pickup for the Loco, and also the pickup for the tender, which I guess I'll have to do a little bit later on, because the resin's still drying on the buffer beam. But I can sure do the Loco, and then I can start assembling the chassis. So I'm going to get my point. I'm going to be using 0.3mm, I think I am. Let's find out. Right, yeah, I think I'm going to use 0.3mm for this. So I'm going to cut a generous amount of it, like that. And that is what's going to go into these clips, like that. And then the clips will be melted so that they are grabbed. Then there's going to be another length of this, which is a bit longer, like that. That's going to be soldered in the middle, like that. And then that wire is going to go off to the motor via the firebox, where it should hopefully look like some real copper pipe work. So I'm going to get on with that. Alright, so now I've got pickups fitted to the tender chassis and to the Loco base keeper plate. Obviously these haven't been adjusted or refined yet. I'll wait until the wheels are in and then I'll do that part. Next then, I think it's finally time to start adding some of the detailing to the locomotive, or rather the Loco body. But before I do, I'm going to fit the weights inside the body, because I don't want to have to manhandle them into the smoke box after I've detailed everything, because obviously I don't want to damage it. So with, I think these are right-handed scissors, with terrible scissors, or perhaps right-handed scissors, or maybe both, I'm trying to cut these weights. Ah, that's better. You see, you have to use a man's tool for this. And that should be able to deposit inside the Loco body. Okay, then same again. All right, so now this body, oh, that's got some weight to it now. What does the body weigh on its own, I wonder? So that weighs 30 grams all on its own now, so that's awesome. Okay, next job then. I think it's time for the handrails. So these pieces, I believe, are the handrails. They're gonna need a little bit of cleaning up, and I'm just gonna snip them in half, and then I've got 2 sets of handrails. Okay. Okay. And in that goes. Okay, nice. And on the other side. Okay, so that's the handrail fitted. Then there is a pipe, and that's this, and that just fits on just one side of the boiler, so I'm going to put that on. Right, does this part fit? Let's find out. Okay, so that's in place. Now, what do I want to do next? That's a good question. I'll have to have a think about it. I guess I can do the smokebox door, so I've got the door itself, and hopefully that will fit. Let's just check that first. Yep, that's a fit. And there should be somewhere, and I'm going to use my little tweezers, there should be a smokebox door handle, which is going to be difficult to find. I think that's probably it. Yeah, that's it. So let's glue that in place. All right, and I guess I should leave that to dry for a second, shouldn't I? So now I need to think again about what I'm going to do next. And I think I know. I think it's going to be the brake wheel for the tender. Yeah, because that's still a detail missing. So there's the little wheel. I'm going to need some more of that copper wire. Yeah, that'll do. Right. So let's cut a small section of that. And let's stick that little wheel on it. Okay. And then I guess I should let that dry. So while that does, let's put the smokebox door in place. So the smokebox door, let's just put some glue around the general area. Okay, and let's secure that in place. Okay, good. So now I'm going to try and put a bit of this copper pipework onto the side of the dome here. So my technique for this is going to be to cut a length that is too long. I'm going to stick it in the hole that's designed for it and then bend it. Then I'm going to slide it through the hole that I've got in the bottom of the cab, and I know you probably can't see this. And then I'm just going to put some glue into the hole again, and because I've bent it, it should fit in quite nicely. And then I can snip it off here and put a little bit of glue at the base of it as well. So there we go, we've got the first bit of real copper finally fitted to the Loco. Let me try and show you that, hopefully that's noticeable. Yeah, a bit of real copper. Cool, this is looking good, isn't it? It's starting to come together. Right, I think now then I can start looking at the chassis. Hopefully these splashers are sort of in position, and I suppose I can test whether they are by taking my driving axles and positioning them into the bearing slots, and yeah, they're not touching the splashes, so that's good. And I suppose I could try it with this one as well. Yeah, not touching the splashes. Okay, so now I'm going to try and put the coupling rods onto these wheels, because I think it's time to start assembling the chassis. So first thing, I need these little, I don't even know what you call them, I guess nuts. They're a bit like nuts. Yeah, let's try and get these onto the wheels. Right, so let's get the coupling rods and the crank pins fitted. So I'm just going to do this with the axles fitted to the chassis, because then I won't make a mistake and get any of the positionings wrong. Okay, so there we go. The driving wheels now have coupling rods on them. Look at that. Ooh, perfect. So, where's my motor? There it is. Right. So I'm going to pop this into position. Hopefully this should be a very, very snug fit. It does seem to be. Push that in as far as it will go. Yeah, that's gone into its limit. Perfect. And I guess I can put the wheels in then. All right. And then the base keeper. But I'm not going to screw the base keeper on right now, because I still need to adjust the pickups. The base keeper hooks in at the front and then screws down at the back. Obviously, without the screwing down at the back, it's not going to stay put. So I'm just going to hold it in position, and then I'm going to snip the pickups to the correct length. And now I can bend the pickups into position. And let's just test fit, make sure that's all right. Yeah, looks like it should be good. All right. So now I've got to feed the motor wires through the base of the chassis. That should be fairly straightforward. Okay, pull those through. And now I think I should be able to put the base keeper plate on for the final time. All right, looks awesome. And then of course these wires will neatly fold around the motor mount and then solder to the top of the motor, which I'll do now. Just a little test. Bear in mind there's no weight on it really, so it's not going to be a good runner, but it is in the right direction, so that's cool. Good, so I can now snip off the excess wire. Blimey, I did leave a lot of excess. It's a bit wasteful, isn't it? Never mind. Before I can put the body on, I need to do the other bit of copper pipe work on the Coppernob part. So I'm really just trying not to back myself into a corner with my options. So the wire, or the pipe, as I'm going to call it, is supposed to thread down into the bottom like that. And then that fits into the side of the copper knob, like so. I can cut it off at the base and glue it at the base as well. Okay, good. So the last parts that need to go in position before I can fit the body to the chassis are the valvey things. Clack valves are they? Something like that, for the side of the boiler, and also these tiny little boiler support thingies. Get the use of my technical terminology here, and they fit into the chassis like that, but with glue so that they don't fall immediately out again. Okay, so I'm going to have to try and glue these little tiny boiler pieces into position, and the thing is I'm going to have to put the body on while the glue is still sort of drying, so that these go into the right position. So this ought to be pretty darn hairy, that's for sure. Let's give this a go. Okay, so a little glue in the hole, and let's put that piece in. And now let's try and get the body on. Oh, scary. Yep, they're in. Now I'm going to put the screws in and make that final without, hopefully, tearing off all of the lovely details I've just painstakingly fitted. So let's try that very, very carefully. So that's the first of the screws, just loosely fitted for the time being. And then the reverse rear screw. All right, nice. So that's starting to look good. Now then, I can put these valve pieces, or whatever they are, on the side of the boiler. So I'm going to thread those through their hole, hopefully. And then I'll put some glue in the locating hole, and hopefully I'll be able to trim it down to length afterwards. Otherwise there'll be a big wire of copper poking out the bottom of the Loco, and that won't look great. Now, can I get my snippers in to cut these to length? That is the big question now. Yes, I can get to them. Awesome. It's going to be pretty darn fun removing the body in the future, that's for sure, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Right, so I'm going to put that brake wheel onto the tender because I realise I haven't done it yet. So let's do that. A little bit of glue in the hole, and let's get that wheel in position. There we go. That looks all right, doesn't it? Nice little wheel on there. Okay, we'll deal with the tender a bit more in a second. I know I've neglected that a little bit. So there's just a bit of cab detailing now to get on with. So I've got the regulator here, that can go in. Don't see any reason why not. All right, lovely. So that's the regulator in. I've now got the reverser rod. So I think I'll put some glue on the reverser rod itself, and that ought to make it a bit easier to fit. There we go. And I believe there are just a couple more parts to put onto the Loco. Okay, so next I'm going to assemble the front buffer beam, which is easier said than done with this. So let's just make sure I've got the buffers the right way round. The buffers are single piece buffers this time, which is much better. Okay. And I guess I can fit the buffers to the back of the tender as well. So let's do that. Okay. Right, so let's put that buffer beam onto the Loco then. Hopefully this will work. Okay, good. So I think the Loco is almost there now. I've got the reverser rod still to do. So let's have a go with that. I do know how to put this on because I just slid it into place earlier, so this should be okay. One more piece, and that is the top of the Coppernob dome. And this is a very, very, very fine little piece. So I'm hoping this will finish it off and make it look quite decent. So let's do that. A little bit of glue and get that on. Okay, and luckily this one's easier to put in place, I should think. There. Right, let me try and give you a close-up of the Loco then, now that it's all together. So there we go. That is the Loco. I'm holding it at the back because I don't want to knock off any of the detail, but there we have it. Old Coppernob, more or less fully assembled. So now I'm going to get onto the tender, and hopefully that will go together just as simply. Right, so I've got some wires ready to solder to the pickups of the tender, so I'm going to go and do that. Okay, so the wires are now in. So I guess now I can put the wheels in as well. So these should go in just like regular wagon wheels do. Lovely. So now I can try the tender body, which I'm gonna, perhaps I shouldn't have put the turning wheel on the top of the tender because now it's going to be quite fragile as I'm trying to fit the body, but never mind. We'll have to try. All right, tender coming together beautifully. I really like this tender. I'm not saying I really love my design, I'm just saying it's a gorgeous tender, but there we go, look how cute that is. Wow, what a tender. And of course, I've got a little coal load as well to put in, and that should fit. Yeah, there we go. Very nice. Okay, so there's some brake rigging that needs to be fitted to this tender, so let's try that. Brake rigging just fits into a single hole in the bottom of the tender, so this should be nice and easy. Okay, so that's in. Brake rigging ahoy. So, I think the time has finally come to try, at least, to unite Loco and tender together with an electrical connection between the two. So, let me do that. Okay, so tender can go into the cradle. Hopefully I won't completely destroy the Loco's detailing when I do this. I think I should probably have put that, that top piece on after all of this, but never mind, not much I can do now. Right, I'm gonna go and solder these, be right back. So there we have it. I think that is it, the fully assembled Coppernob. And the Loco weighs in at 70 grams. And I guess it's going to be hard for you guys to get a sense of the size, but yeah, it's not large. Here's my hand. So it's not a big Loco. 70 grams, not too disappointed in that, to be honest. I think that's more, well, I think that's about what I said in the last video. 60 to 80 grams was I saying? Well, 70 was bang in the middle. So that's all good. I think now, though, I need to get it down onto the track and put it through its paces a little bit and see what kind of a load it's capable of hauling. That should be interesting. Okay, so there she is, good old Coppernob, the very first prototype, down onto the track, ready for the test. Assuming everything works properly, I've got 3 Hornby 4-wheel coaches set up, and hopefully, you know, if she can manage those, then I would be happy, I think, with the pulling power. Because obviously these are not going to be hauling massive long freight trains, but I need to worry about whether the Loco actually works first, so let's see if it does. Ooh, yeah, it does. I've given it a little bit of lubrication, because I think that's important, but it seems to be all right. Now, with the previous prototype, it was much better in reverse than it was forwards, so let's see if I can do a crawl. Oop. Not running yet, I should say, but we know that this isn't going to be an amazing crawler, but it's not bad. It's definitely not terrible, and it is smooth. I mean, look how smooth it is. It's really smooth, amazingly smooth, to say how very, very basic the mechanism is. And go on then, let's see if it will crawl backwards, because it was even better in reverse before. So let's try. Oop. So pretty good, pretty good. To be honest, I'm really, really impressed by that. To say that the mechanism is almost completely out of view as well, I mean, that ain't bad. Right, let's go and test the coupling then, make sure that all works. Okay, now I'm thinking the coupling is a little bit low. Low or high? What was it? High, yeah, I think it's a bit high, so I'm going to lower it, I think, before the final design. But it should be all right if I manhandle them into place. Yeah. So, yeah, the coupling needs to be reduced in height by half a millimetre, something like that, maybe a whole millimetre if I'm being generous. I need to find out for sure and do it properly, but I have managed to get them to couple. So, can she haul 3 little coaches? Let's see. I'm going to keep it at a steady speed. Wow. I'm so impressed. It's taking curves and everything without any problems. This is the first time I've had the tender connected to it, and it's just going fine. It is going absolutely fine. So, to be honest, it has exceeded expectations. Obviously, I haven't finished the bodywork. None of the components are painted, and all of the pieces are funny colours. But the fundamentals are right, I think. Everything seems to look okay. It certainly all fits together all right, and I've got a pretty good idea now of how to assemble this thing properly. I think I would change the way I assembled it. I think I would get the body on a lot sooner because that's quite a rough process, and a lot of that stuff would have been just as easy to fit with the body on, I think, on the chassis. So that's something to change, but everything is fine. So I'm ready now to proceed to the next level, and that is of course to properly finish off the Loco, try and paint it and line it and do all that good stuff. So once again, to be continued, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again, probably not that soon, but not too far in the distant future, all being well. So cheers folks, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers everybody.